Superman Ride of Steel was an Intamin mega coaster located at Six Flags America in Bowie, Maryland. The ride had a 25-year run before closing with the park in 2025. Back in November, everyone had their nostalgia glasses on for Six Flags America, but now that it's been 7 months since its closure, I really have to ask, was Superman Ride of Steel any good? Before the park was known as Six Flags America, it was Adventure World. The park had recently been purchased by Tierco Group Inc., which is better known as Premier Parks. Premier Parks had this aggressive and frankly stupid strategy in the 90s. Heavily invest in parks and their ride offerings. This was an attempt to make every park they operated into a destination park, even though some of these parks were just fine as regional amusement parks. In 1998, Premier would make their biggest purchase yet, Six Flags Theme Parks Inc., buying the remaining shares from Time Warner. Premier would waste no time and rebrand into Six Flags Inc. and begin renaming many of their existing parks: Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom, Six Flags Marine World, Six Flags Darien Lake, and Adventure World would become Six Flags America. The first wave of investments into the newly rebranded park would be a package of DC-themed rides, Joker's Jinx and Two-Face being the major new rides. The park, however, was gearing up for their massive 2000 edition. In 1999, Six Flags Darien Lake in New York was going through a similar transformation, and to celebrate, they introduced an Intamin mega coaster called Superman Ride of Steel. This ride served as a prototype for the model, and it represented a new era for its park. Nothing would ever be the same afterwards, and you could say the same for its two sister coasters built in 2000. On May 5th, 2000, Six Flags New England in Massachusetts would open their version of Superman Ride of Steel, featuring a heavily modified layout with different elements, more consistent forces, and becoming one of the most critically acclaimed coasters of the 90s and 2000s. About 1 week later, Six Flags America would introduce the subject of this video, also Superman Ride of Steel, this one being a mirrored clone of the ride at Six Flags Darien Lake. These three rides were game changers for their respective parks, and Six Flags America's would be the high in a very short period of rapid investment. Superman Ride of Steel would open on May 13th, 2000, standing at a height of 208 feet, having a top speed of 73 miles per hour, and a total length of 5,400 feet. The ride would open to positive reviews and kept that general consensus for its entire run. In 2016, the ride would shortly experiment with VR, which thankfully did not last long. In late 2023, Six Flags announced that they would be merging with their competitor Cedar Fair to form the largest theme park chain in North America, operating a portfolio of a total of 42 properties, including amusement parks, water parks, and resorts. The goal of this merger was to combat the massive debt in both companies. On July 1st, 2024, the merger would be finalized, but the first major changes would come a few months later. On November 14th, 2024, the newly formed Six Flags Corporation would put out a press release announcing the closure of King Dakar at Six Flags Great Adventure, the former world's tallest and fastest coaster. The ride was closed quietly a couple days prior, along with Green Lantern, Twister, Zumanjaro, and the iconic Skyway. At Six Flags Over Texas, the park would quietly close La Vibora, the last Intamin bobsled coaster, and El Diablo, a massive looping flat ride. The company promised major investment to replace these rides. Some of those rides we are beginning to see today, but the company also did not rule out more closures of both rides and parks. About a month later, Nighthawk and a handful of flat rides at Carowinds would quietly close, as well as Anaconda and Berserker at King's Dominion. And in the early months of 2025, Superman Escape from Krypton would close at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This purge of rides was just the beginning, and unfortunately, one park would have to bite the dust. On May 1st, 2025, the theme park operator would announce that Six Flags America would close after the 2025 season. The land would not be sold as a park, and the goal was for redevelopment. Superman would operate with the park until November 2nd, running with its brand new fleet of trains introduced in this final season. The ride was the last of the Superman trio to operate with the original name, the clone at Darien Lake going by just Ride of Steel now, and the ride in New England going by Superman the Ride. Unfortunately, in its final final hours, the chain on the lift hill would snap before it could give its final rides, leaving countless guests without a proper goodbye. Superman Ride of Steel would start with a 180-degree turn out of the station into the lift hill. Once engaged, you will slowly climb up the 208-foot lift. You get some good views of Batwing on the right and the Gotham section of the park on the left. When cresting, you get a good view of Roar right next door. Once disengaging with the lift, you would enter the 205-foot drop. In the front, this drop didn't do much, but in the back it had some great airtime. The trains on this ride were very long and it would just drag you over. As the train speeds into the valley of the drop, it would quickly bank to the right for a 90-degree low to the ground turn. This is the moment where the ride truly shows off its amazing sense of speed, while also packing in some decent positive Gs. It's a small moment, but it really does add to the layout. As the train levels out again, it would enter its first massive camelback, which really did nothing on all of my rides. I rode in the front, in the middle, and in the back, but this camelback just never hit. It went fast enough to clear the hill without feeling like it would valley, but it went slow enough where there was no airtime whatsoever. I don't know if the Darien Lake clone is similar in this way, but America's clone was just a dud with this element. After the camelback, the train does a small hop into the first massive 540-degree helix. The hop delivered a solid pop of airtime, and the helix, while very drawn out, did deliver some good positive Gs. Nothing blackout inducing, but it was pretty easy to gray out on it. After exiting the helix, you enter the infamous straight track. The story with this is that the Darien Lake version sits above water, so this is supposed to be like Superman gliding over the water. Personally, I think this effect could still be had with a speed hill instead of straight track, but either way, the intent is still there. Six Flags America's Superman does not take place over a lake, but instead in a forest. So this straight track is just kind of next to a service road, and that's about it. After that rather strange moment, you enter the ride's second camelback, which delivers much better airtime than the first. I would compare it to a toned down version of El Toro's camelbacks, or even the first hill on Superman at Six Flags New England. It was a very good pop of airtime and a good warm up for the finale coming up. After the camelback, you enter another helix, this one being 500 degrees. While it doesn't make much of a difference given the shape of the helix, the previous one was a downward helix while this one is an upward one. It's just as good as the first one, although you have burned up a lot of speed, so it's slightly less intense. When exiting the helix, you kind of dip leading into the next hill. I'm not sure what this element would be called, but it delivers some great airtime, which was then followed up by this airtime hill which lines you up with the final brakes, and another two hills to finish off the ride. I went through that section rather quickly, but it's just 4 great ejector airtime pops, and it's easily the best part of the ride. With all of its strange design choices, Superman did have one of the best finales on a hypercoaster. It was just a blast. After the hills, you enter the rather short brake run and roll back into the station, completing what once was the tallest coaster in Maryland. In terms of ranking Superman Ride of Steel, it lands in about the middle at 139 out of 252. Above rides such as Batman the Dark Knight at Six Flags New England, Superman Krypton Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and Blue Streak at Cedar Point. But below rides such as Poltergeist and Flight of Fear at Fiesta Texas and King's Dominion, and Patriot at Worlds of Fun. It is my lowest ranked hypercoaster, below Valraven at Cedar Point at 135, Big Apple Coaster at New York, and Las Vegas at 128, and Steel Force at Dorney Park at 99. As stated earlier in the video, Superman Ride of Steel is closed. Whether it will be scrapped or relocated, who knows. But at bare minimum, it can bring life to its sister coaster in New England and its mirrored clone in Darien Lake. This is a strange ride to look back on for me, because unlike many of my other defunct coasters, there is still a version of this ride out there. So while it is tragic to lose such a massive ride, it doesn't hit as hard as something like King Ka, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, or even Jetstar 2 at Lagoon. Superman was a really good ride. It delivered reliable speed and airtime, and was a highlight at a park that deserved so much more than what it was dealt. But it was still clearly a prototype that would be outdone by its sister coaster at Six Flags New England in the same year. But I still really enjoyed this ride, so I can't complain. If you want to hear more about recently defunct coasters, consider checking out my in-depth review of Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios Florida, one of the most bizarre coasters I've ever ridden. That will be popping up in the card on the left, and more Six Flags America content will be popping up on the right. If any of those catch your eye, I will see you there.